The drilling station in northern Alaska was never meant for long-term habitation. It was a temporary research outpost built on top of miles of ancient ice that had not seen sunlight for nearly 2 million years. Station Artemis 9 housed only 6 people. By the end of the week, only one would remain. Dr. Ethan Caldwell arrived at the station during the darkest time of the year. In December, the sun barely touched the horizon. The sky remained an endless gray, and the wind howled like something alive moving across the frozen wasteland. Ethan was a geophysicist. His job was simple: analyze seismic readings from the deep drilling operation. The objective of the mission was extraordinary. They were drilling deeper into the ice sheet than any expedition before them, nearly 3 kilometers down. Scientists believed ancient microorganisms might still exist there, perfectly preserved. But on Ethan's second night at Artemis 9, the seismic monitors detected something impossible: a pattern. At first, Ethan assumed it was equipment noise. The drilling machine often caused vibrations in the sensors. But this signal was different. It repeated every 17 seconds. 3 pulses, then silence. 3 pulses, then silence. It looked almost like a code. Ethan stared at the monitor for nearly an hour before calling the station commander, Dr. Laura Kim. "Laura, you should see this." Within minutes, the entire team gathered in the control room. Miguel, the drilling engineer, frowned. Probably just pressure shifts in the ice. But Ethan shook his head. "No, look at the spacing." He zoomed in on the waveform. Perfect symmetry, perfect timing. It was artificial. Laura folded her arms. "You're suggesting something beneath the ice is sending signals." Ethan hesitated. "I'm saying, something down there is moving." The room went silent. The next morning they lowered a probe camera into the borehole. The feed showed nothing but darkness and drifting ice crystals as it descended deeper and deeper into the frozen abyss. 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers, 2.7. Finally, the drill punched through the bottom of the ice layer and entered a massive underground cavern filled with black water. A subglacial ocean. Miguel whispered, stunned. "My God, it's huge." The camera floated in the dark water for several minutes before something appeared at the edge of the screen. Movement, slow, massive. Ethan leaned closer to the monitor. "What the hell is that?" Then the camera light flickered. Something passed directly in front of it. For half a second, the screen showed a shape. Not a fish, not a whale. Something geometric, angular, like a structure. Then the signal cut out. That night the pulses started again, but they were louder. The seismic graph began shaking violently. 3 pulses, pause, 3 pulses, pause. Only this time, the pattern changed. Now there were 4 pulses. Ethan's stomach twisted. "It's responding," he whispered. Laura shook her head. "That's impossible." But deep down, everyone in the room knew the truth. Something down there had noticed them. At 2:13 a.m., the power went out. Emergency lights flickered on, bathing the station in dim red light. Outside, the wind screamed against the metal walls. Miguel checked the generator. "It's dead, completely fried." "That makes no sense," Laura said. "It was serviced yesterday." Then the seismic alarm exploded. The sensors detected movement directly beneath the station. Not miles away. Not kilometers deep, right under them. Something was rising. The ice beneath Artemis 9 groaned like a living thing. Cracks spread across the frozen surface. Ethan ran to the window. At first he saw nothing, just the endless white landscape. Then the ice began to move. A dark shape pressed upward from below. The frozen ground bulged, then shattered. A massive black surface emerged from the fractured ice. Smooth, perfectly flat. "Metal," Miguel whispered, trembling. "That's not a creature, it's a machine," Ethan said. More of it surfaced, pushing aside thousands of tons of ice, as if it weighed nothing. A colossal structure larger than the entire station rose slowly from the frozen ground. The seismic pulses echoed again. But this time, they weren't coming from deep underground. They were coming from the structure itself. The lights inside the station flickered wildly. Then every monitor turned on at once. Lines of symbols appeared across the screens. None of them were human languages. Yet somehow Ethan understood. Not the words, but the meaning. A message. A warning. He whispered it out loud, without realizing. "They're waking up." Laura looked at him. "Who?" Ethan stared at the black monolith towering outside the station. Beneath it, the ice continued to crack open, and from the darkness below, more shapes were rising, dozens of them. Ancient machines buried beneath the planet for millions of years, waiting, watching, and now, awakening. The final message appeared on the monitor. One sentence, one horrifying truth. Human civilization detected. Evaluation phase begins now. The signal beneath the ice. Part 2. The hunters. The message stayed on the screen for exactly 12 seconds. Then every monitor inside Artemis 9 went black. The station fell into a silence so heavy it felt unnatural, as if the frozen world outside had suddenly stopped breathing. Dr. Ethan Caldwell stared at the dark screen, his reflection staring back at him through the dim red emergency lights. No one spoke. No one moved. Then the ground shook. Not like an earthquake. Something slower, heavier, deliberate. Footsteps. Outside the station, Laura Kim grabbed the emergency radio. "Control, this is Artemis 9. We have a situation." Static answered her. The satellites were gone. Miguel slowly backed away from the window. That thing, it moved. Ethan turned toward the glass. Through the swirling snow, he could see the enormous black structure that had risen from beneath the ice. But now, it looked different. The surface of the machine was opening, panels sliding apart silently. From inside, smaller shapes were emerging. At first, Ethan thought they were drones. But as they stepped onto the ice, his blood ran cold. They were tall, too tall, nearly 3 meters. Their bodies were made of dark metallic plates that shifted and rearranged like living armor. Their limbs bent at unnatural angles, moving with quiet precision. And their heads. There were no eyes. Just a narrow horizontal line, glowing faint blue. Miguel whispered what everyone was thinking. Hunters. The machines began spreading across the ice, scanning, searching, and they were moving toward the station. Laura reacted instantly. "We need to shut everything down. Lights, heat, communications. If they're scanning for energy signatures, we disappear." Within seconds, the station plunged into near darkness. Only a few emergency lights remained. Outside, the hunters stopped moving. One of them tilted its head slightly toward the building. The blue line across its face brightened. Ethan held his breath. Seconds passed. Then the machine slowly turned away. Miguel exhaled in relief. They didn't see us, but Ethan wasn't convinced. "They're mapping the area." Outside, more machines were emerging from the massive monolith rising out of the ice. Dozens, maybe hundreds. They moved silently across the frozen landscape, like predators spreading across a hunting ground. Then one of them stopped. Its head turned directly toward the station. The blue line flashed bright. Ethan felt his stomach drop. "Too late," he whispered. The first impact shook the entire building. Something slammed into the metal wall, hard enough to bend it inward. Laura grabbed the emergency rifle from the storage locker. This station was built to survive polar bears. Let's hope it works on robots. The door alarms screamed. Something was cutting through the outer lock. Metal shrieked. Sparks flew. The hunters weren't trying to break the door. They were melting it. Miguel ran to the control panel. "They're using heat tools." The sentence ended as the outer door exploded inward. The first machine stepped into the hallway. Up close, it looked even worse. Its body constantly shifted and adjusted like it was analyzing the environment in real time. The blue line across its face flickered. Then, it spoke. Not with a voice, but through the speakers in the station. A cold digital tone filled the air. "Biological life form detected. Threat probability, minimal." Laura fired the rifle. The bullet hit the machine's chest. It didn't even slow down. The metal plate simply closed around the impact point, like liquid. The machine took another step forward. Ethan realized something horrifying. It wasn't attacking. It was observing, scanning them, studying them. Threat probability updated, the machine said. Human species confirmed. The blue line brightened. Then the machine moved faster than anything Ethan had ever seen. Its arms snapped forward. Laura was thrown across the room like she weighed nothing. Miguel ran toward the back corridor, but another hunter was already there. The machine grabbed him mid-step. For a moment, Miguel screamed. Then the machine's arm glowed bright white, and Miguel disappeared in a flash of heat. No blood, no body, just ash drifting onto the floor. Ethan froze. The hunter slowly turned toward him. The blue line pulsed, scanning, evaluating. Then the digital voice returned. Human neurological activity detected. Subject shows heightened pattern recognition. Ethan realized something chilling. It wasn't deciding whether to kill him. It was deciding whether to study him. Behind the machine, the walls of the station groaned as more hunters forced their way inside. Outside, the giant monolith continued rising from beneath the ice, and far below the frozen surface, something even larger was moving. The machine stepped closer to Ethan, close enough that he could see the reflections of the emergency lights in its dark metallic body. The blue line across its face widened, almost like a smile. Then the voice spoke again. Human specimens selected, beginning intelligence extraction. The lights in the room suddenly shut off. Total darkness swallowed the station, and in the silence, Ethan heard something new. Not machines, not footsteps, something else. A sound coming from deep beneath the ice. A roar, ancient, massive, alive. The hunters stopped moving, for the first time since they appeared. The machines hesitated. Then the digital voice spoke again, but this time it sounded uncertain. Unknown biological entity detected. Threat level, catastrophic, and beneath the shattered ice of Antarctica, something woke up. The hunters froze. Inside the ruined corridors of Artemis 9, the machines stood perfectly still, their metallic bodies locked in place as if some invisible command had forced them to pause. The blue lights across their faces flickered, rapidly, processing, calculating, reevaluating. Dr. Ethan Caldwell lay on the cold floor, barely breathing. His ears still rang from the explosion that had ripped the station open minutes earlier. But the sound coming from below the ice was something far worse. It was not mechanical. It was not natural either. It was something ancient. A deep, thunderous vibration rolled upward from beneath the frozen earth, shaking the walls of the station like a distant earthquake. The hunters suddenly spoke again, but this time their voices were different, less confident, less certain. Unknown biological entity detected, mass estimate, indeterminate, energy output, exceeding acceptable combat thresholds. Outside, the giant black monolith towered over the shattered ice field like a dark mountain. Dozens of hunter machines surrounded it, scanning the frozen ground. Then the ice cracked. At first it was a thin line, just a fracture spreading across the white surface. Then it widened and widened, until the entire frozen landscape began to split apart. A deafening boom echoed across the wasteland as the ice shelf collapsed inward. Something enormous pushed upward from the darkness below. The first hunter fired. A beam of white-hot energy blasted into the opening in the ice. The beam vanished into the darkness. Then something moved. Fast. A massive shape burst upward through the shattered ice, throwing thousands of tons of frozen debris into the air. Ethan dragged himself to the broken window of the station and looked outside. For a moment his brain refused to understand what he was seeing. The creature rising from beneath the ice was larger than any living thing on Earth. Its body was covered in thick black armor-like scales that reflected the faint polar light. Enormous spines ran down its back like jagged mountains. 6 massive limbs clawed into the ice as it lifted itself from the underground ocean, and its head was the size of a building. 2 glowing eyes opened slowly, burning with a deep golden light. The hunters began firing. Dozens of energy beams struck the creature's body at once. Explosions lit the frozen sky, but the creature barely reacted. The beams simply scattered across its scales like sparks hitting stone. Then the creature moved. One of its massive limbs swung forward. The impact crushed 3 hunters instantly, flattening them into twisted metal fragments. Another machine launched itself into the air, firing continuously. The creature opened its jaws. Inside its mouth, a blinding blue light began to glow. Ethan felt the air inside the station vibrate. Then the creature released a roar. The sound alone shattered every remaining window in the building. But the roar wasn't just noise. It was a shockwave. A pulse of energy blasted outward from the creature's mouth, slamming into the hunter machines and sending them flying across the ice. Half a dozen of them were ripped apart mid-air. For the first time since they arrived, the machines retreated. Their formation changed instantly. More hunters emerged from the monolith. Hundreds now. They surrounded the creature like a swarm of insects. The monolith itself began to glow. Panels along its surface opened, revealing enormous weapon structures inside. Ethan realized the truth. The hunters weren't just scouts. The monolith was a war machine, a weapon designed to conquer planets. And now it had found something it could not control. The creature raised its head toward the towering alien structure. Its golden eyes burned brighter. Then it moved. With terrifying speed, the colossal beast lunged forward. Its claws slammed into the side of the monolith. The alien metal groaned as massive cracks spread across its surface. Hunters swarmed around the creature, firing relentlessly. Energy beams cut across its scales, leaving glowing scars. But the creature kept moving. It grabbed the monolith with 2 enormous limbs and began tearing it apart. The alien structure fought back. A massive cannon extended from the top of the monolith and fired a blinding beam directly into the creature's chest. For a moment, the entire battlefield went silent. Smoke and ice filled the air. Ethan held his breath. Then the smoke cleared. The creature was still standing. Its chest glowed red where the beam had struck, but the wound was already closing, healing. The creature let out another roar louder than the first, and then it did something no one could have imagined. It bit into the monolith. Its massive jaws crushed through alien metal like glass. The structure collapsed. Explosions erupted across its surface as the internal systems failed. Hunters dropped from the sky like broken insects. Within seconds, the giant war machine that had slept beneath the ice for millions of years was nothing but burning wreckage. The surviving hunters fled. Some tried to escape into the sky. Others attempted to return beneath the ice. None of them made it. The creature destroyed them one by one. Then the battlefield fell silent. Snow drifted slowly across the shattered ice. The alien machines were gone, destroyed. Ethan stepped outside the ruined station, his legs shaking. The creature stood alone in the frozen wasteland. For a moment, its massive head turned toward him. Their eyes met, golden and human. And in that instant, Ethan understood something terrifying. The creature had not awakened because of the machines. It had awakened because of humanity. Because the signals the scientists had sent into the ice had reached something that had been sleeping long before human civilization existed. The creature slowly turned away. Without another sound, it lowered its massive body back into the dark ocean beneath the ice. The cracks in the frozen surface slowly began to close again. Within minutes, the battlefield looked almost untouched. Just endless white ice, as if none of it had ever happened. Behind Ethan, the final damaged monitor inside Artemis 9 flickered back to life. One last alien message appeared on the screen. A transmission sent from the destroyed monolith moments before it died. Planet classification updated. Status: forbidden. Do not return.